What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. I've been playing around with White Lord, the new Skull Servant support that we got, and this thing is pretty nuts. The deck can still be kind of bricky just because it requires so many main deck monsters within the archetype for it to like do what it does. So I've been playing around with the ratios a little bit. Ultimately, what I decided to cut down on from my previous version of the deck was king down to 2 because it doesn't really do anything in your hand. And with the Lord, the Prince, and the Mizukis, you can get it out of your deck really easily or get it out of the graveyard really easily. And so I just didn't feel a need for 3 of them anymore. Cut down the Lady in White to 2 as well. I didn't really want to do this because it takes away one of the princes from being useful, or if you open one, it takes away 2 of the princes from being useful for that graveyard setup. But that really hasn't been an issue while I've been playing around with it, so that worked out fine. Lord I decided at 2 as well, just because it requires graveyard setup to be good, but if you can hit that graveyard setup, this thing is insane. You can hit mills of like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fairly easily, especially with white baking. You can set up your graveyard like right away to have a mill of 4, even if all you had was the white baking to get the play going. So really good. Princess is down to 1. It's an okay backup normal summon. You could probably play some other normal summons in the deck. I just didn't really find any that I liked all that much, other than maybe the Unizombie, just to start getting something going. And then I trimmed down the Horus lineup quite a bit. We just went with the 3 imsety, the 1 happy, and the 2 sarcophagus. This just felt like I was drawing into these 2 guys a lot, and the 3rd copy of this a lot. And drawing anything other than imsety or sarcophagus just bricks in your hand. You can't do anything with it. And so usually they would just end up being targets for like 1 for 1 if you happen to draw it. Otherwise, they do nothing for you. They're also not darks other than imsety, so the allure doesn't work. So this just, it felt like it works a lot better. It's a lot cleaner. The only issue is if you open like multiples of this, it hurts your sarcophagus's ability to like empty out your hand of the stuff you don't need so that you can make use of them out of the graveyard. But even that didn't feel like a worthwhile trade-off to add the other 2 back in there. So this is where I'm at for now. Double Kurikara, this thing is super good, even if it's just to try to like bait out effects so that the rest of your effects can go through. If I open this, I'm just hoping to try to bait something with, you know, some of your board breaker stuff or whatever, and then you're going for that Kurikara to wipe out all those monsters. But I do think 2 is good. Having 3 was leaving me with like multiples fairly frequently because the deck trims itself down very fast, and then it can draw a decent amount, at least between the Horus draw, the allures, the talents, all that stuff kind of leaves you with too many copies of this thing and you can't use it. So I felt like 2 is fine. We added in the Called by the Grave so that the hand traps hopefully aren't as big a problem if you see it ever. And then the double Lightning Storm, the double talents. I was playing Forbidden Droplets previously because it's a discard outlet. I just don't think that's as good. Lightning Storm is just so good in this deck because you can choose what you feel like you need to clear out first. And like I mentioned with Kurikara, you can purposely target something you know they're going to protect so that they activate their effects and then drop the Kurikara to clear them out anyway. This, I think you could take it or leave it. The times that it's worked, it works really well, but sometimes you open it with a bunch of your spells that you want to have for other plays, and having to lose them all just to get a handful of Skull Servants that kind of don't do much without the rest of the deck kind of sucks. So you could probably cut this and play something else if you wanted to, but it worked well enough, so I left it in there. The extra deck is mostly the same as it was before. This guy's just here because it can clear out. Usually it's either to summon a white baking and then link it off so that you get the white baking effect, or I guess any level 1 just to get something in the graveyard to trigger it, so White Prince as well. IPSP just kind of staple at this point. Pentastag I did not have in there. There was a comment on the previous video that mentioned it. I completely forgot this card existed, to be honest. I think it was a starter deck super a while ago. Pretty much what it's for is you would just link into it and then put your king underneath that down arrow, and now if it attacks a defense position monster, it does piercing damage, which is usually winning a game because you can get your king up to, you know, 10 to 15k fairly easily because of White Lord now. The 2 vampires are decent. They've got some like stealing effects which actually can play into your zombie vampire because you can steal their stuff and then use it as material even if it's not level 8. The Equimax is kind of gimmicky. It's just for fun. I like to try to put it on the board and then put 2 kings on the board, and then Equimax has like 25,000 attack, so it's just fun to do, but you don't really need it because this guy is plenty big enough on its own. Access Code, good card. Underworld Goddess to go with the IP just to clear out a board. And then the Xyz lineup I went a little heavier on. The Buzz King is a decent going first card if you get stuck going first, because this is a going second deck 100%. Very much so a glass cannon. Going first, you're going to get blown out pretty bad unless you can set something up. So Buzz King to kind of get a look at the extra deck, rip something away. The number 90 for some effect negation, number 38 for the spell negation, Zombie Vampire for the mill and the special summon, Typhon for the bounce. Either you're getting the bounce or you're triggering a negation effect that you're going to try to clear with Karikara, and then the Zeus, because after you use the Zombie Vampire mill, you're probably better off attacking with this and then going into the Zeus versus leaving it on the board, just because you don't really need the mill twice unless you had a completely terrible opening hand, and having this kind of like reset button is pretty decent because you can get your king back out of the graveyard pretty easy, and you don't really need to build a board to win, you just need to get that one attack to go through, so the Zeus made sense here. Now we're going to take a look at how we can use this White Lord. You actually have a very strong potential of OTK just by having Imsety and White Baking in your hand. I'll show it to you. Just keep in mind that the whole deck is based on milling, and so if you have really garbage mills, it doesn't work. But statistically speaking, we're playing, I believe, 17 Skull Servant monsters, so you're gonna hopefully mill enough of them to get this guy big enough to win the game. When I show it to you, it'll be an unshuffled deck, so it's gonna be like the most perfect mills, and he'll be at 16k. It doesn't need to be that big. You can just work around that in some other way. So let's take a look at that real quick. All right, so we got our opening two, Imsety and White Baking. We are gonna use the Imsety to ditch the White Baking and grab the Sarcophagus. White Baking is gonna give us 2 cards. After we get our draw, of course, ignore what this is. It doesn't matter what it is because you're gonna discard it anyway. White Baking's effect's gonna activate. We're gonna get the Lord, and then usually I'm going Lord and Prince just because you're gonna have to discard one, and this way you can discard the Prince to set up some of your mill. So Prince is gonna send Skull Servant and Lady. So now when you discard Lord, it counts itself as well. So even at this point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5-card mill, but we can go a little bit harder than that. We're gonna use our Sarcophagus to put Happy in the graveyard. So whatever this is that you drew, it's getting discarded. It's incredibly lucky if it's King, but it's not always gonna be, obviously. We'll special summon our 2 Horus monsters back. We'll get our Imsety, and we'll get our Happy. We're gonna make our Zombie Vampire. I guess attack mode is fine. Doesn't really matter because it's all about King. And then we'll detach to mill 4, and then you'll get that special summon, so we can use it to get the King. You could also use the White Lord to get the King. We'll just grab it right now. But either way, you're kind of like net even. So you could summon it off of Zombie Vampire, and you have 1 less card to mill, or you can leave it in the graveyard and mill the 1 extra card, and then banish this to summon this, and you have 1 less card in the graveyard, so it's exactly the same in the end. We're going to use this to mill 9 cards, and now we're at 16k, 3k, which doesn't matter, but they would have to have a monster with 8,000 attack or a way to out this, otherwise you have the OTK right there. And remember, like I said, this is not shuffled, so we milled literally every other Skull Servant card in the deck. That's not always going to be the case, but he can be quite a bit lower, and you're still safely in range to get that win. And if they do happen to have something in defense position that you would have to attack over, you can just do this exact same play and use this summon to grab something else. Use hopefully like a Mizuki or a White Lord to put something on the board and make the Pentastag, and then use either another Mizuki or White Lord, one or the other, because White Lords once per turn to put the King on the board and then attack over it. And unless they have, you know, a 4,000, 5,000, 8,000 defense monster, you got the game. But we'll wrap it up right there. Let me know if you have any other interesting texts in the comments down below. Any ideas on this build that I got, I'd love to hear it. This is a fun deck to play around with. It's fairly cheap to build other than the Imsetis, the SP, and the Typhon. I think all of these are going to be in the tins coming out in a couple months, if I'm remembering correctly, so you could even just wait till then to pick it up. And these 5, instead of being a few $100s, would be like, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 bucks. So all in all, fairly cheap. Try it out. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy deck building. Have a good one. Goodbye.